you, Jonathan, for joining me,
Yep.
for taking the time on a Friday away from your work, from family. So appreciate it, man. Thank you.
Absolutely, man.
Awesome. How's Atlanta?
It's good. It's very warm. Um, this is unseasonably warm temperatures. Two good ice storms before this, but they're making it up to us by giving us 75-degree temperatures. So
What's going on with the weather, man? We're trying to grow turf,
yeah,
and this weather is just not helping.
my thing is, man, this is good. We enjoy this weather, but man, it really is going to stress out the pre-emergence and push weeds. So it's here. So yeah, but it's kind of a pain in the neck. But I certainly enjoy it. But it's I know we're gonna have this going to really push up the weed pressure.
Right, right. So now that you just talk about pre-emergent, let's just dive in. How do you feel? What do you think these weird weather patterns that we get in, like snow, ice, water, drought? So, in your experience, how all these things affect pre-emergence, especially?
Man, I have a good friend who always says that not every year is the same, and you would attest to that.
Yeah.
I truly think this past fall was one of the craziest falls we've had as far as, weather wise. And from what I see, we went here in Atlanta from August 1st, we're really in the Southeast, from August 1st to November 7th. We had one good rain event, and that was Hurricane Helene. And you know how that is. That came and that was like a 2-3 day event. So therefore, if you take that out of the equation, we probably had 2 inches in that, what is that, 3-month period, 3.5-month period.
Yeah, about.
And, one thing that scares me and always bothers me is, when you're putting out pre-emergence, especially on a property that's you're managing, but also that you don't manage the irrigation. For us, it scares me because did the pre-emergent get watered into the correct soil layer? And
Yeah.
I think we're starting to see that now. I think we're starting to see Poania pop up here. But it was incredibly dry. It was very, very dry this past fall. Like I said, take out Hurricane Helene and it was very dry. It was
And
very
that's
dry.
it, right?
Yeah.
And that's it. I feel your pain, man. Knowing for sure if the turf is watered in after the pre-emergent is always, big question. And then after 2-3 months, that's when we start seeing really if
That's
the
worth
pre-emergent
seeing.
is working or not.
Yeah. I mean, in the golf industry, and if you're managing the property, you can go apply that pre-emergent, and then you can watch the sprinkler water right behind it. But if it's not your property or, somebody else is managing the irrigation, you're kind of hoping that it's there. And if it just sits there for a while, it degrades. And then once it finally does get watered in, how effective is it?
Yeah. And Jonathan, from the long term business, how do you manage that? Like, let's say you go out, you do the pre-emergent, and then all these environmental factors, things that you cannot control or we cannot control, and then you got weeds and a lot of things going on. From the long term business angle, how you manage that with your clients?
Well, I think, for us, it's if we're able to apply the pre-emergent, in my opinion, it's on us to control the weeds, and we will clean up whatever breaks through. We get creative with products that will kind of help bind it to the soil. I mean, I know you've heard of products that'll help kind of get it to the soil and bind and stay there.
Yeah.
So we do use those products just because you don't control the irrigation, you don't control Mother Nature and her water. But yeah, I mean, in my opinion, if we apply the pre-emergent, it's on us to prevent the weeds, and we can only do so much. But also, if we do it, it's on us.
Yeah.
So it's our commitment to clean those weeds up.
Do you have any kind of communication with your clients? Like,
Yes, we do. We do communicate to the client. To say, hey, we just applied this pre-emergent, it needs to be watered into the soil and get it there and help us out with irrigation or run a cycle. But we also 50% of our work is commercial work, and
Right.
then you're relying on property managers to do that as well. So it's just tough. But again, if I know that I can apply that pre-emergent, it's on us to clean it up and control it.
Yeah, making sure it's there. Yeah,
Yeah.
100%. And how you deal? I mean, Jonathan, we know you cover a lot of territory with Yarsi. How you deal logistically, and when becomes pre-emergence, for example, when you have to do properties on Tennessee or Georgia, North Carolina, different environments. How you, being the president and the big guy, how you management the whole scenario in Jersey?
I have a good team. I'll say this, every market's got their own team that's there, that's on the ground local. And, we set an agronomic schedule, and we do our best to stick to it. And, we do adjust things, left and right from, weather patterns and whatnot, but every local team is on them to cover their 300, 500,000 acres that we do. It's on them. So I just rely on the team and make sure we have a team that's there to on the ground, boots on the ground, to kind of help with that.
Yeah, having a good team is the key for sure.
And I got, I'm one of my peers is Alan Gunter, who's our VP of operations, and he's very good with logistics, and he makes sure that the trucks go out on the ground with the right mixes, and we hit our schedules. That's my biggest thing. We've got to hit our schedules.
Yeah,
just
yeah.
like, that we've got to hit our schedules.
Yeah, Alan is a great guy. We want to make sure to invite him the next time.
He would happily. I'm sure he probably won't talk as much as I do, but he will happily talk. Yeah.
Oh, that's good. So, Jonathan, let's go back a little bit. I know you are an agronomist, and know all the science behind. I want to talk a little bit soil. Many people in the industry, especially on the lawn care business, they just go out, put fertilizer. Jonathan, you are an agronomist.
Yep.
And we know that many people in the industry believe that fertilizer is the only option, or that's it, right? Just fertilizer. But can you just tell us a little bit about how important it is to keep a good soil?
Yeah, soil is key. You build things from the ground up, and there's also trying to find those available nutrients that are in the soil is in unlocking those as well helps. So, you try to first of all, the first step is to get the available nutrients available. That's the first step. And then, applying what's, you're deficient in is key as well. But it all comes from good soil. If you got really crappy soil, you're going to have crappy turf, and then you've got to mend it and go from there, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, 100%. And from the lawn care business perspective, how we can, let's say there is somebody out there running the business and trying to do a good job, but at the same time make a good money. So how we can balance those situations where we understand how important it is, the soil conditions, but at the same time, people want to have green grass by yesterday, and maybe, they don't want to pay a lot of money. So, in your point of view, how we can manage that, how somebody can manage that situation.
Well, I think, basically, I think you start with a basic program, and, and we try to create a program that's good for all sites. And then we just try to improvise, on the one-offs and whatnot that you have. But the key is just to have, just realize that you're going to have to amend the soil depending on where you are. And you're going to every soil is not going to be ideal conditions. So you've got to be able to, again, find those available nutrients and then provide the nutrients that are deficient. And we try to build a program that's kind of across the board that'll be successful, and then just kind of adjust as we go along.
Right. 100%. I understand that. I mean, it is complicated a little bit, but it's possible at the same time, right? I understand.
Yes, it's very possible.
How things work.
You can have good turf, and you just got to find where you can manipulate, and sometimes you've got to bypass what's in the soil and go foliar applications, but you can manipulate it to have good turf.
Yeah, 100%. And we can sit down here and talk about all day long about soil, fertilizer, and all these components. But one important part of that is the technician who is doing the application.
Yes.
What kind of training you feel or you provide to you guys to make sure they're just nailing the work in the field?
Yes. So we try to, and you're speaking my language now with training, and that's kind of my backbone of the business. That's where I focus on, and I try to, I tell it internally all the time. I'll put our technicians up against anybody in the Southeast, because we do spend our time training, and we have quarterly trainings where we go pretty deep. We'll spend all day talking about weeds and turf. We'll have biweekly trainings on site. And then our managers will ride with our technicians every week. So that you're touching that technician multiple times for a quarter. And we just try to pound them with information. And one thing we had feedback a couple of years ago from our technicians is that they want to be trained. They want to know what's going on. They want to know what's going in the tank. And one thing we do step up, and I feel I'm proud of this, is we don't create a mix for the round. We create a mix for the week, and then we will adjust it daily. Every week, I personally will set out a fill sheet for every technician and every truck that they go in, and I'll look at their routes. I'll look at what they're trying to accomplish, and then I'll create them a mix sheet every week for them. And then again, if we have to manipulate it or change it for the day, we can. But every week they have what's going out. And then one thing I think is very creative, and I would encourage all lawn care operators to do this as well, is tell them what you're putting in the tank and why you're putting it in the tank. So I have an objective for every mix. If we have 4 chemicals in there, we have 4 objectives or what that chemical is. Like this chemical is like, hey, we are trying to attack nutsedge with this chemical, or this chemical is preventing the weeds. I do that just so I want our technicians to know with the mixes. I just want them to know what's going out of the tank and why we're putting it in the tank and what it's trying to accomplish. So therefore, not only were they growing their career with Yardley, they may go somewhere else and be, successful in their next career just because they know what they're trying to accomplish.
Yeah, no, it's important. Yeah, 100%. It is important to them to understand what they're doing.
Yeah, and I know we want them to go spray grass, but I also want them to know if they're on a property, what they're putting out and why.
Yeah, it's important for them to understand that. Be so spread out. How do you kind of manage that training process? Like you put everyone in one place, or you do that on the different locations?
So every location has what we call as a branch captain. And that captain he basically makes sure he unlocks the gate. He makes sure the trucks are filled. He makes sure everybody shows up. And it's my commitment to the company to every 2 weeks, I will be in front of our teams, as the agronomist of the company, I'll be in front of their teams to, tell them what's going on. I mean, cause weather can change weekly. Disease pressures can change weekly, weed pressures can change weekly. And so I want to be in front of them every 2 weeks just to have that conversation with them and tell them what we're trying to accomplish this week. That's our goal.
Yeah, it's important to be face to face with the team, not once in a while, but kind of very often to make sure they stay on track. And then once you do that, Jonathan, once you provide the training, provide the material, the program, what's kind of the Jonathan's routine as the leader on following up, that making sure everyone is hitting the target?
So, and that's where we've really stepped our game up in the past probably 18 months is, with the every week I give them a fill sheet. Every week I'm monitoring. So what we do is every week my router will tell me the projected acreage, what's going out. And then then on Mondays, he will give me an email. Hey, these are the acres that we treated. So the first step is I want to make sure what we've inventory that's gone out every week matches our acreage sprayed. That's key. And then a program we started last year was what we call a QCA program, and it's the quality control audits. And my personal eyes, my manager eyes are always looking at properties to make sure not only the recent application worked, but the whole entire program works. And that's to me, I'm a big believer, as all turf growers are, the program is more important than the application. We got to make sure that the program's working, not just the application. So we try to time our QCAs with our recent applications to where, hey, is the program working? Is the latest application working? What's coming up? Is there pressures that we're not seeing that we need to adjust our next application with? So I try to bridge those gaps by, I try to look at 100, 150 properties a week.
Wow, that's a lot.
It's a lot. And,
it's a lot.
I mean, it's not very, it's a lot of just make sure that it looks good. That's really all we're seeing. And you know how it is. I've kind of built an agronomic program inside of Yardley where I can probably, if you gave me a date of May 15th, I can probably tell you the pressures that are there. You're going to have nutsedge, you're going to have brown patch popping on fescue, dollar spot, whatever. So you kind of know going into when you start your QCAs what to look for so that you're not scouting for everything.
Right. You'll be more specific on whatever is happening. Yeah. 100%, man. And how you do that? Go ahead.
We track our QCAs and in high profile properties. Me and I try to touch them every 40, 30, 45, 60 days, especially during growing season. I close that window.
And that's just in Atlanta?
Just all across our markets. And like I said, I rely on managers as well, but also I will have my personal eyes on most of our high profile properties in all our markets.
Awesome. Yeah, man, that's impressive. That's a lot of work.
I like looking at grass. I mean, that's what I look for, man.
Yeah, yeah, me too. Is the grass is the smell, and especially when it start greening up, and
Yeah.
I don't know you, but in my case, every time I go after the technician is out and see the results of the
Hmm.
application of the program itself, I kind of got a good feeling of, oh, that's working. You know what I
Yes,
mean?
and I just want to see it working. Exactly. And if it's not
Yeah,
working, we've got to adjust and we've got to do a service call or we got to change the next program. Exactly. I just want to see results. And, usually I can glance at a property and be like, okay, that worked. We're good. It's going to continue to work and whatnot.
yeah, awesome. And let me, I don't want to say change topic, but kind of just twist things a little bit. Something I'm dealing in my area, but I don't know if you're dealing with that. What about, government trying to move from synthetics, from pesticides to more like organic and adding more regulations of
Yeah.
what we can do in the field? You facing something like that in your market?
We are. I'll say having a market in Georgia and in the Carolinas, it's a little easier than certain areas.
Yeah.
But we do have a portion of Atlanta that's really hits hard on us for organics. And until we get a good solution for weed control organically, I think you've got to handle the synthetics for weed control. Now fertilizers,
Right.
I think there's ways you can manipulate it with organics and stay away from the synthetics as well. But to get a good product, I think you have to use what's out there. And I do think residential and commercial lawns are very regulated, and I think as long as you follow those regulations, you can be environmentally safe, but also follow the regulations.
Yeah. And part of that process, do you guys or personally you think or have in mind about going into start using technology, like some kind of technology to eliminate one of those some of those situations? Like, do you have something in mind or not really?
Not really. I think we're always trying to adjust and get better. One thing in we have a big mosquito portfolio and a big program for mosquitoes. And one of the worst things I see is a guy out there with fogger. I mean, we do it. I'm not dogging that, but we do. Somebody out there with a mosquito fogger it's a bad look. So we've got creative with using go partnering with Site One to use their N2 care boxes, to where you can kind of cut back on the fogging and
Yeah.
you kind of let the mosquito do its thing. But I would say that's where we've kind of adjusted on our own technologies for us to be a little bit more environmentally friendly is our mosquito care.
Yeah, yeah, it is tough. I mean, for the job we do, we have to be very cautious on technology, I
And that, and
guess.
yeah, and people want results, but also people want to be environmentally safe, but you've got to have results as well. But again, as long as you follow the regulations, I think we have the regulations in place for a reason, and as long as you follow those regulations, you can. I think we're
Should
doing
be
our
fine. It should be
yeah,
fine. Yeah,
we're
should be
doing our
fine.
part. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, yeah. And just talking about fertilizers, we missing our guy Brian Grill.
Yeah,
We send him a big
he's
hello.
the best in the
Hopefully,
business, man. He's the best in
yeah.
the business.
Hopefully, we have him pretty soon
Yeah.
back on track. But in the meantime, Jonathan, overall point of view about fertilizer program, warm season grasses kind of
Hmm.
deal. What's your opinion on that? Many people want to fertilize centipede with 5 pounds of nitrogen.
Right. You got to follow the recommendations, and like you said, that's a good example of trying to pound centipede with a bunch of nitrogen. It'll look good for a season, but then it's going to decline after that. But we follow the recommended rates, and we stay close to the University of Georgia. We stay close to the NC State. I graduated from ABAC. We stay close to all the good grass growers out there and their recommendations. And so I think as long as you follow the recommended rates, and you'll have success. You can't we have a big fescue market, cool season market. And I think it's 20% in Atlanta. That's our fescue properties. I wish it was zero. But as you go a little further north to Charlotte and Raleigh, it's probably close to 50%. And, again, wish it was all zero. I think there's a place in commercial landscape and residential landscape for fescue, but it's just getting tougher and tougher to grow with environmental challenges, and budget constraints. In my opinion, if you want high end fescue, you need to be on a fungicide program. And, it's just tough to get people to sign off on that. But anyway, If you just follow the recommended rates, and when you want to apply it, again, like you said, don't be applying 4 pounds of nitrogen for fescue in July. You're gonna have dead grass, but you're gonna need it in different times of the year, if that makes sense.
Thank you for saying that, man.
Yes.
I want to tell you personal experience that happened to me last year. I'm in Southeast, South Carolina, Georgia, and I started going to upstate, South Carolina, Greenville area, and fescue was new for me. All right. I didn't have experience at all with fescue. So I was looking at a property in June, July. Obviously, fescue doesn't look great.
Yep.
And on my mind was, I'm going to pound it with fertilizer. And then luckily that day, I have lunch with another guy who knows about cool season grasses. And we start talking about it. And then I told to him about my plan to fertilize the fescue grass. And then I noticed that he started, doing some research on his phone or doing whatever. And then he just told me, I said, man, I want to tell you something. Like, I don't think so. It's a smart idea to do that at this time of year. And then he just gave me the whole, educational speak. And basically, he saved my life. And I don't feel bad. I don't feel bad saying
too.
Yeah, true. I don't feel bad saying that. I've been saying this for many times because it's important, like, when having those connections that help you to do better, right?
Yes.
And I will not regret to saying I was lucky to have that lunch with him because he literally saved my life and also, having big issues in that property just because I didn't have the knowledge about it.
And that's good. Yeah, exactly. I mean, I appreciate, I value your friendship because we can bounce things off each other as well. But that's good to have. But, speaking of fescue is, if you want to get into it is, it still needs its nitrogen. A lot of people stay away from the nitrogen on fescue, but it still needs its nitrogen at the correct times. Our goal from January to May 1 is to get that fescue as healthy as possible. We rely a lot on nitrogen to get it as healthy as possible for May 1. And then once May 1 hits, we are in straight survival mode. And we're focusing on the micronutrients to keep it healthy, and we're promoting stress relief and root growth and whatnot. And but a lot of things that people will stay away from in the summertime for fescue that still needs this nitrogen. But it doesn't need we call it spoon feeding, which in the turf industry,
not that much.
Yeah, we spoon feed the nitrogen to it just to keep it going, keep it growing, and keep the color there. But cut it off, and then once you're seeding again in the fall, start pumping it again. That's kind of the life cycle and fertilizer cycle for fescue.
Just to give an idea, I was ready to dump like a pound of nitrogen in that fescue.
You're about to drop a Yara bomb on it, weren't you?
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
So, but no, man, that's important to know those details.
Yep.
And honestly, I mean, I know you have the same feeling about it, but unfortunately, the climate, the environmental factors is making things harder and harder every season.
Yep.
I mean, I remember when I started in this industry 20 years ago, it was a calendar. When I used to be a spread tech, and it was a calendar. March, April, May, like a Bible. And now it's like, just be ready to whenever you can do the things.
You got to adjust. Exactly. And you're exactly right. I feel like it's gotten harder, and the seasons are getting more and more difficult and more extreme. And I don't mind saying it. Like, I got a good friend, Jeremy Wade, who works for Harrell's, and you probably run across him. Really smart dude. But, one thing that dude says all the time is, man, every year is different. And I agree with it. Like, I can't remember an agronomic year that's just been, okay, it's textbook. It's exactly how it works. I mean, 2 years ago, I think maybe 2 years ago, 3 years ago, we had the coldest spring we ever had. And I remember on July 4th, here in Atlanta, we were looking at fireweed at the same time. Poania was growing actively, and dumpweed was growing, and nutsedge was growing at the same exact time. And I can't ever remember a July 4th that's like that. And to have those four extreme of weeds at the same time.
Like 2 years ago, exactly. I remember being in Atlanta on a Braves game on a Saturday.
Go Braves.
With my wife, Braves. and with my another couple, and we were wearing like a jackets
Yes.
Saturday night because it was it was cold enough to wear a jacket. It was
Yeah.
crazy, man. On
And we
July,
couldn't, for us, we had a lot of warm season grass that needed to green up. And man, we were pouring the
right?
nitrogen into it and it was just laughing at us not growing. And that was, like I said, it was probably 2 years ago. And like I said, wheat pressure, it was crazy. Fertility pressure, we couldn't get any grass to grow at all. And it was very frustrating.
I don't know if you run into this issue, but when we have situations like this, and then you have clients behind you
Yes.
pushing with why my turf is not green, and then
Yes.
you're trying to explain them what's going on, they look at
Yes.
you like,
Yeah.
I don't think so. It's like, I don't believe you.
Right. Right. And same for us. I mean, that same exact year was, like I said, it was we were pouring the nitrogen into it. We just had that, that off color Bermuda that looked. It was green, but it just wasn't that deep green. And it's just because we couldn't get
Yeah.
any daytime and nighttime temperatures to get it going and growing. Well, I mean, we were pouring the nitrogen into it, and it just nothing was happening. And I'm with you. And if you look back at next year, I'm a weather nerd. And you look back at this past year, 2024, again, starting with October 1st, we had 2 inches of rain if you take out Hurricane Helene from August 1st to November 6th. That's a long time to go with no rain. And so, for us,
Yeah.
as we're seeing, not only the pre-emerge that we talked about earlier, fescue, we're trying to germinate fescue during that same period. And that seed's not going to pop and not going to grow and mature if it's just getting a little bit of irrigation here and there. So the soil is dry. And so, we're still kind of dealing with some half-hearted fescue that's out there. It's just kind of mediocre. So yeah, it's hard to explain that to the customer because they want perfect grass. And again, I'll quote my friend Jeremy Wade. It is so hard. Every year is not the same, and it's just so hard to adapt. You got to.
Yeah. We have to be flexible and be adapting to whatever is coming
Yeah.
next week or the next month. That's for sure. Jonathan, something I have here on my notes. Again, you running the business, and I just want to talk about a little bit about marketing. Marketing is important. I know there is no better marketing than green turf, free of weeds. But what Jonathan and Jarcy do when it becomes marketing? I mean, if you can just tell us
Yeah.
what's your
So
strategy on that?
marketing is on my bucket of the business, but we do have a marketing team, and it's ran by Lindsay Morris, who's she's great. You should probably have her on her podcast as well. She's great, but she kind of manages. She's got a marketing calendar that she goes out for our direct bill customers. But one thing that we try to step up on our own through a lot of our business through partners, commercial partners and residential partners that are the landscapers, and we partner with them to do turf applications. We really want to bump up that communication to our partners so that they're prepared for when the customer has questions or is angry or something like that. So she does a really good job of that with our communication to our partners. I assist her in that, but also with our direct bill customers, she has a great marketing calendar that she works on and that she sticks to, that we're constantly trying to be in contact with our partners. Again, like you said, the best marketing is to have perfect turf. So, she runs the social media campaigns and stuff like that for just so we can try to just stay in touch of direct bill customers.
Yeah. So just to keep things moving.
She keeps things moving. And again, she does a really good job of that marketing calendar that she's in charge of.
That's awesome. What about equipment, Jonathan? What do you think about be ahead of the game, trying to get the best tools available for the teams out there? I know you guys are very proactive on that, especially you. But anything coming up new for Jonathan and their teams?
So, we always, one thing like you probably know is equipment's the toughest part to keep running, to keep just make it working efficiently. And I'm gonna give you some credit, Ms. We had a conversation 2 or 3 years ago about, steel green ride-on machines and whatnot. And so we've really adapted those into our business. And I'm gonna give you 25% of that credit. You helped us and gave us some insights on that. So on our commercial properties, we run 50% of our commercial properties. We're running ride-on units to kind of help us with
Awesome.
efficiencies. Obviously there's sites that you can't run those on, so we hose pool on those. We basically, for us, is we have a commercial team and we have a residential team. Our residential team acts a lot differently than our commercial team. Our commercial team acts a lot different than our residential team. It's a different personality, in my opinion. And so, we expect our commercial guys to pull, if they're pulling hose, it's always a 2-man team. And we use, tanker machines to give us that 800 gallons. If we need to go spray 800 gallons, we'll go spray 800 gallons. But then we also, on our commercial team, we also have the team that runs the ride-on units. And I'm a big believer. I used to not be a big believer in ride-on units, but again, after our conversation we had 2 years ago, I was sold. But residential, we will pull hose on all our residential. Just because here in Atlanta, our average square foot is 3,000 square foot yard. In Charlotte, it's kind of the same way. It's a little bigger once you go to Raleigh. But I truly think, our guys should go spray 20, 25 houses a day. And, that's never going to be over 3 acres of turf. And that's very doable if you're pulling hose. Right. We use pickup trucks for our residential teams, 300-gallon tanks, split tanks, 100, 200 gallons, just because of our turf types because we're in the transition zone. For our commercial, we have split tanks as well, just for, if it's an 800-gallon tank, we have a 100, and a 600-gallon tank. But then we also have 600-gallon tanks that are 200, 400. So having these split tanks are always good for us because we deal with 2 different types of turf, and that's kind of, that's our our equipment piece of it.
That's awesome. That's a good setup, man. I mean, you have to be ready to whatever is in your market, right? You cannot just have one tool for all. You have to be flexible and just be ready. I remember an old coworker of mine. He used to say, "Fire truck ready." We should be ready for whatever we're gonna find during the day, right? Either with equipment, the chemicals. Back in the years when I used to be a spray tech, I'm talking about we just put a bunch of chemicals in the truck and go. It wasn't really a plan, to follow. Nowadays it's different, but he used to say that fire truck ready always.
I like it.
So that's awesome. That's awesome.
And
do you see us using drones in the near future or not?
Man, I had a guy who used to work for us. He would love that conversation, man. Every day he'd ask me, and if he watches this podcast, he'll know who it is. But he would always ask. He's like, drones are gonna be spraying at some point. Again, call me small-minded. I just don't know how it would do it with buildings and trees and whatnot. But I do, in agriculture, it's there, and I think at some point we will be dealing with it, and I embrace it. Again, I can't wrap my head around it, but I think it's that.
Yeah, I'm with you. I haven't seen some videos of drones on the agriculture field, but I cannot combine that image on the commercial side of the business.
There's a lake here in Atlanta called Lake Lanier, and a lot of times I would drive over that dam to go to cross the lake. And one day I saw a drone spraying the dam. I would love to know what they were doing and who was in charge of it, but I was pretty intrigued. I think there's a place for it. I can't wrap my head around it, but I think there's a place for it.
Yeah, that's
maybe
for
somebody
sure.
smarter
We
than
never
me.
know. Yeah, we never know what's going on. I mean, but technology is there, so we'll see how that's going to affect us and in the future. And so what's new for Jonathan coming up? I'm sorry, go ahead, Jonathan.
Well, I was going to say, I embrace the technology. I think there's technology and products that are coming, that we embrace it. We're doing things different than we were doing 5, 10, 20 years ago. There's just better products, and liquid fertilizers are way better than they were 10 years ago. Granular fertilizers. Right. So, on the technology side, as far as products that we use, I embrace it. And I think there's better ways to do things and then cutting edge ways to do things. And we embrace that.
Just technology is not on devices, but also on the products that we use, right? Fertilizer, fungicides, insecticides. Every year or every other year, there is new chemical coming up, and it's better than the last one. And who knows what's new, but it is just working better. And
I mean, who would have thought? On that note, who would have thought that we could be talking about preventing armyworms, but there's products to prevent the armyworms now. So I think the technology.
There is two big products, at least the ones I know, the main ones. One is from Syngenta and the other one is from Durantis. I mean, from FMC. I'm sorry, Durantis. Which one you use for armyworm?
The one for Syngenta, the Celprin. That's we put that in our program. yeah, if we can get the customer to sell, sign off on, I mean, I guess it was 2021. We had an unbelievable armyworm year. I don't know how it was for you down there where you're at, but and then we had this past year was kind of crazy for armyworms as
It
well.
was
But it was
crazy.
nothing like 2021. I think 2021, I thought the world was ending with how many armyworms were eating things up. So after that, we kind of got
Yeah.
customers like, hey, just prevent them for us. And again, I don't think we were even having that conversation 10 years ago. Like you just had to go react to the armyworms. So the technology's gotten there.
Yeah, it's still like Acelepryn and Durantis is the one
Horrendous.
that from FMC. I'm a heavy user of that one. Works pretty much the same, but just like you mentioned it, the technology that spraying that on a specific date and then just be covered for 3 or 4 months
That's
is
crazy.
amazing. Yeah,
And I think,
it's
I
amazing.
honestly, I'm a nerd out on some armyworms, but I think armyworms is to me the greatest phenomenon in nature. They're crazy. So I can talk armyworms all day long. I think they're crazy. So
We can do that in another episode for
maybe
sure.
season 2.
Yeah, right. Army worms.
Yeah.
So what's new for Jonathan? What's coming for the Jonathan?
Yeah.
New concerts coming up.
Well, yeah, man. I'm always trying to follow some good acts and some bands, and for us, for Yardsie, is we're just continuing to grow throughout the Southeast.
Awesome.
That's kind of our goal, is kind of grow up the Carolinas and up the Eastern Coast. That's what we're trying to do, bring good team members on and whatnot. But as far as music, I knew Billy Strings.
Billy Strings. Okay.
Red Clay Strays is really good. They've got a new album that's really good that we're trying to chase them around this year. That's kind of what we got going on as far as, as on the entertainment side of it.
Yeah, that's good. You're ready for this Super Bowl, Big Sunday?
Yeah. I don't know who's going to win, but
You
I'm
got
going to watch it. Yeah.
any epic? Any favorite?
I think it's got to be the
Really?
Eagles, just because I'm a Georgia Bulldogs fan, and I think like half their roster is made up of Georgia football players. So I'm pulling for the Eagles. As a Falcons fan, hopefully one day we can be in the Super Bowl again and not embarrass ourselves. The past 2 times we've been in the Super Bowl, we just embarrassed ourselves. So, as a Falcons
Yeah, yeah.
fan, I just keep holding out hope that we can get there and actually do something. But that may be after I'm dead and gone. I don't know, man. It's very frustrating as a Falcons fan, man.
It's what it is. I feel you. Packers at the Green Bay has been also embarrassing.
Yeah,
The
yeah.
last
Y'all
the
had a good
last
run,
years.
though. You've got a good run. The only 2 times the Falcons have gotten the Super Bowl, we've embarrassed ourselves.
Yeah, we'll see. And what's going on with the Braves? They finally gonna go back in place, or what do you think? I mean,
Man, if we can keep Ronald Acuna,
after the championship,
healthy, he is the great. I think he's the hottest thing in baseball. I think if he's healthy for 162 games, there's not a better player out there. His problem is he just can't stay healthy. But our problem with the Braves is we just beat the Mets too many times. So if you're a Mets fan out there, I'm sorry for that,
yeah,
but we enjoy owning the Mets. But we just, what I love about the Braves is we're so steady. We're always going to be there. We're always going to contend. Like I said, we've got a
yeah,
good roster of young players. Our pitching scares us, but if we can just get Ronald healthy and we can just get on the back of that dude, he'll carry us, man.
yeah. That's a key player for sure.
He's
That's a
the
key
man.
player.
I love my
Yeah,
11-year-old, my 6-year-old are big Ronald Acuna fans.
awesome, awesome. Jonathan, before we go, so you mentioned it, your children, your young fellas. I have a young boy as well. Any advice for the new generation that they may be curious about the lawn care, about turf, about ornamental?
Yep.
Just a person like you with the knowledge, the experience. Any advice that you can tell to the young people that are just getting into the industry and trying to find the way up?
Well, I'll say this is, I'll always say this. At the end of the day, it's just grass, and just grass. It'll always be there, and don't stress out too much about it. But also, it's a really growing industry, and there's a need for good turf providers in the industry. I think a lot of when you come out of agriculture college and turf school, a lot of guys go to golf and a lot of guys go to sports field, but the landscape industry is dying for people who know how to grow turf. So I would just encourage
Yeah,
people to look that way. You've got a lot of good nationwide big companies that need people who know how to manage turf and kind of identify things. So basically don't shy away from it. There's a huge need, and it's a great industry. It's a growing industry, and you can enjoy it and be successful in it. So I would don't shy away from the landscape industry is what I would say. That would be my advice.
That's awesome, man. That's
Yeah.
pretty awesome. Jonathan, thank you for the friendship. Thank
Yeah,
you
man.
for your time today. I know you're a busy person. You're a husband, a father, a businessman, golf player,
Yeah.
everything. But
Golf
thank
is
you
my
for making
passion.
the time
Golf
to
is my
sit down.
passion. Yeah.
Thank you
Miz, did you
for
know I hit my
putting.
first hole in one this past year? Did you know that?
No, I didn't know that. Really?
It was the smoothest 7-iron I ever hit. It was first one. I've been playing golf for 30 years, and it was the first one I had, so it was great. Last October. Anyway,
Awesome.
I just want to
Awesome.
throw that out there.
Congrats.
Yep.
All right. Thank you, Jonathan. Appreciate
Thanks,
it,
man.
man. I really enjoyed talking to you. And hopefully we can sit down together again for lunch or something like that.
Absolutely. I appreciate it, Miz. Thank you, man.
Okay. All right, man. Have a good day, man. Thank you.